A very pleasant good morning to you and welcome to the 2012 West Coast Conference Cross Country Championships here at a very soggy Fernhill Park in Portland, Oregon. I'm George Levine alongside Scott Knockstedt. And Scott, the mud, the rain today, how much of a challenge is that for the runners?
You know, well, George, I'd hate to see all these teams come here and not get the true Portland experience. So, all things considered, it will be a soft course, and the runners are going to have to work a little bit harder to make sure that they get the speed they're looking for.
And you might have heard a gun fired in the background. We've had a little bit of a false start in the women's race. They had somebody fall at the starting line, so they're going to start over again.
That's right. My suspicion is she probably lost her footing. The infield is terribly muddy today, and it just reflects the conditions of the course as a whole.
Speaking of this women's race, the University of San Francisco trying to make it 4 West Coast Conference championships in a row. They're a team coming up from a place where it's been pretty dry. All the California teams, this is kind of your first taste of winter.
That's right. That's right. San Francisco definitely will be the team to beat. BYU, Portland, and LMU are going to be in the chase, though. And some of those schools, BYU and Portland in particular, are a little more accustomed to these conditions, which will definitely play to their favor.
Now, the course, wet or dry, what are the special challenges here at Fernhill?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be the pace of the race itself. It's a flatter course than Crystal Springs, and so we're going to see the runners taking it out probably a little bit faster. And on the S-curves in the infield, right around the 2K mark, it's going to be a little bit tighter for the runners, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Now the women's race is underway. You see the runners coming across the infield track there and on toward the baseball field area here at Fernhill. And right now the pack very tight. We haven't seen anybody break out yet. When will we see somebody break out from the pack?
It's hard to say. There are a few standout runners. Laura Sir and Cherise Shea both have a pretty strong, are in contention for the title. However, from what I understand, this is going to be a much closer race than we're going to see in the men's. So it'll be hard to say. I'd approximate that the second half of the race is we're really going to see the separation occurring.
And they're going to go around multiple times on this course.
That's right. This is a 2-kilometer loop, and the women will be running 6 kilometers, so we're going to be seeing them going around 3 times.
6,000 meters altogether.
That's right. So it should be exciting.
Now, on the part of the course where the runners are right now, just looking over a couple hundred yards from where we are, it looks like it's pretty flat. They're going to go through a wooded area. And then what goes next?
Well, after they wrap around to the far side, and they dip down into a gully before looping back around and coming right at us. Then they'll be running across the north side of the track before ultimately hitting a soggy, slight uphill straightaway to hit the 1 kilometer mark.
You know, you and I talked about this standing out here waiting for the race today, but the shoes. I mean, you're a runner. Most important thing is your feet and your shoes. What do you do with your shoes for a day like this?
That's right. Well, on a day like today, you want to take advantage of spikes. You have some cross-country courses that may favor flats. This is certainly one where we're going to see nice long spikes, making sure we can get some solid footing. And probably a fair amount of the athletes will not be wearing socks either, lest they get really soggy feet.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you know, you talk about the soggy feet, that can really be an impediment in any sport.
That's true, that's true. Moisture, or at least the presence thereof, is how you get blisters. And in a race like this, that could really make a difference.
And as the race goes on, as the runners acclimate a little more to this cold weather, we're going to see them pick up maybe their split times a little bit?
Probably so. The body responds better at warmer temperatures. The collagen increases the elasticity. So we'll probably see the first 2-3 kilometers as an opportunity for the girls to get nice and warm before they can really unleash some of their speed.
And when you look at this course, going around it several times, you know, if let's say you're an unfamiliar runner with this course, does the familiarity help you go into lap 2 or lap 3?
It should, especially as your body gets a better understanding of what it has to deal with in the final laps of the race. And most of these runners, I'd imagine all of them were here yesterday to run the course. So each girl should have a good understanding and a good handle on what to expect.
How much running would you do on the off day getting ready for a race like this?
It depends. Everyone has their own sort of pre-race preparations. On average, you want to be sure you're well familiarized with the course, and I think a good rule of thumb is to see that course and run it in its entirety at a very easy, casual pace.
Just get to know it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and one of the things I was noticing about the course here is it is pretty flat, but when the grade changes, it changes pretty suddenly.
It does, and that opens up the door for some opportunities for shifting in the lineup of the racers. It's a good opportunity for those people who are good hill runners to take advantage of that and to use gravity to their advantage.
And also, on a day like this, does that increase the slip and fall hazard?
There's a good likelihood of that, and that combined with the density of this pack, the women are going to be quite tight here for most of the race, and anyone trying to make a move is going to be dealing with a lot of people in their way.
Yeah, and you know, it's another thing. You know, we've talked about teams running well together. How important is it for a team to run well together to protect the fastest runner?
You know, it is important. You don't see it as often in cross country, mostly because people tend to take each race individually. However, when you see a team like, say, BYU at last year's conference meet, the men's race, they successfully went out there as a pack and defended the lead together. Several years ago, Stanford won by the largest point margin in the West region ever by running 4 abreast for approximately the first 4 miles. So it can be done, and when it's done successfully, it's very impressive.
It's almost like having bodyguards.
It is very much so.
Yeah, and you know, in this season of political campaigns, you think about entourages, and we'll get a look right here at the entourage of runners coming down the hill back toward the main part of the Fernhill Park plot here. And they're going to come make a turn. They're going to come down toward the football field, and we're starting to see a little separation. Still a lot, very crowded head of the pack.
It is, and really at this stage, it's anyone's race. They'll be coming around here to the 1 mile mark. Unfortunately, I did not get a clock on that.
Your current leaders from
We're going to hear our current leader,
Cherie Shea.
Cherie Shea.
Currently in second from San Diego, Julia Lipson, followed by Laura Hottentrott Freitag. From San Francisco, a threesome of Elena Kirkar.
Now, Cherie Shea has won 4 out of the last 6 WCC titles. And if she wins, it'll make it 5 out of 7. And she was female freshman of the year for 3 out of the last 5 years with LMU.
Yeah, some great runners. You know, as we look at the front of that pack, it's pretty tight. When will we see that start to loosen up a little bit?
Well, so they've just completed their first lap. I'd imagine we'll see the loosening up of that pack during this lap. And then the third lap will cement that lead. It'll be exciting to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, and I think as the runners are a little more familiar with the course, you know, they're going to know, okay, this is a place where I get some good traction. Maybe this is where I can make my move.
That's right. And someone such as Cherie Shea, who is a redshirt junior, she has run a 16:27 for the 5,000. And that time for women is really quite something to be made note of, because she'll have some strong finishing speed for that final lap.
And the runners now moving away from the main part of kind of where the hub of activity is, the football field here on the east of the Fernhill Park campus, shall we say. And that's where our broadcast location is, and where the teams have their, you know, headquarters set up, and all the facilities to service the student athletes. So they're over on the far side of the park right now in relation to where most of the spectators are.
Mm-hmm. That's right, and a course like this is very conducive for spectators, and in many instances you'll see spectators getting just as much exercise as the runners as they zip from one corner to another to cheer for their favorite team.
Yeah, it was interesting last year at Crystal Springs watching the crowd kind of moving around this one set of bluffs, and maybe it would space a couple hundred yards, and people brought binoculars and they were moving around, and you know, kind of moving in this, you know, and it was very dusty there. So it was like you just watch the cloud of dust. That's where the crowd is.
Right. And today I bet we'll see a fair amount of spectators wearing running shoes themselves to make sure they get a nice vantage point of the excitement.
Kind of like bringing your glove to a baseball game.
Very much so. I guess you could compare it to that.
So the runners are still off toward the northwestern end of the park, away from the start-finish line area. They will finish down on the football field track, the track that goes, you know, standard, you know, surface running track.
That's right. That's right. Especially for the final 100 meters. It'll be a quick sprint to the finish. And many of these runners who are accustomed to running outdoor track and field we'll see some exciting closes.
And so the runners now making their way down by the north end of the football field, disappearing for a second.
Yeah, still a very tight pack. Looks as though Cherie Shea is probably trying to make the same sort of mark her former teammate Tara Erdman has on the WCC championship race.
Yeah, and Tara Erdman, a great career at LMU. She won 3 of 4 championships during her 4 years going to school in Westchester.
That's right, and now she lives here in Oregon, running with Alberto Salazar in the Nike Oregon Project. A very talented runner.
And we enjoyed having her on the broadcast last year after she won at Crystal Springs. And
now,
so
Cherie Shea is also the reigning West Coast Conference Runner of the Month for September. So she's got big shoes to fill, but it sounds like she's up to that task.
And the runners are going past the track and the football field, but they're actually off on the grass as opposed to on the synthetic surface.
That's right, especially on that far side of the track, or just on the outside of it. It's very muddy, and much of the grass has been worn down. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the women struggling to get to their footing on that stretch.
And that's, again, slip and fall hazard.
That's right. That's right.
What do you as a runner, I mean, it's going to affect your time you slip and fall. But what's the trick, to getting up and getting moving again?
Well, ultimately, you just have to keep your eyes on the prize, and you can't let something like that phase you. I was in a race recently where one of the competitors next to me fell hard, and he got back up, dusted himself off, and got back into the thick of it. It can be very demoralizing when that happens, but at the end of the day, it's what cross country's about, and it comes with the territory.
And as you're looking around the Fernhill Park expanse here, you're seeing a lot of the men's teams dashing around, getting warmed up. When you've got multiple races going on the same day, you're one of the folks getting warmed up. Are you conscious of what's going on with the pack in the other race?
You try to be, and it's pretty easy to be conscious of it as you see the spectators moving around to support them. But it is important to focus on your own race as well, and I think the men have a lot on their plate, so it'll be exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, and it might be a little bit warmer when they start their race.
That's right. That's right. And well, at least you and me, we can at least hope that it'll be a little bit warmer for us too. It's there's a good chance it'll be just a couple degrees warmer, but the course is going to be a little tuned up by the women's runners, so the men have more of a challenge there.
Women coming into a downhill right now in the 27th West Coast Conference Championships here at Fernhill Park. First time they've been outside the Bay Area. We got a pack there of about 8 or 9 runners up at the front.
That's right, and it still hasn't thinned out quite yet. I'm curious to see what's going to happen during this third lap.
And it's interesting watching.
From the University of Portland, it is Laura Hottentot Freitag.
Lauren Hottentot Freitag from Portland is the leader.
By San Francisco's Elena Burkhardt.
And Elena Burkhardt from San Francisco. But we basically have 2 packs up toward the front.
Natalie Shields.
That's right. It's a very dense pack, and it's a very international pack. I believe we have from San Francisco, we've got a Czech runner, German runner. UP has a runner from the Netherlands, Wales, and Germany tucked in there as well. It's a pretty exciting international field.
Yeah, in this whole Portland area, you talk about people participating in sports, especially in running. It's huge up here.
It is. It's very much part of the culture. And, in the 70s, we saw Prefontaine really put Oregon on the map, particularly University of Oregon. And it's really taken off, especially with the establishment of Alberto Salazar and his Nike Oregon project.
And so I can see where this environment would attract a lot of international runners.
Yeah, that's right. And on top of that as well, Portland has a number of great parks for running, particularly Forest Park, Fernhill, and others that make the experience of training on softer ground really advantageous for those runners.
We're starting to see the back of the crowd coming through about 30 seconds behind, 30, 40 seconds behind the leaders.
Yeah, that's right. And at this stage in the race, it's going to be a bit of a battle for them to try to make up some ground on that lead pack, which is moving quite well.
Yeah, very fast pace to start. Mm-hmm. Now they're moving again toward the western end of the park, out beyond the baseball fields, sort of along that line of trees. Beautiful fall colors here, by the way.
It is, very much so. It's a shame we can't enjoy it with a little of the autumnal sunshine, but you take what you can get.
Liquid sunshine, I don't mind it.
Yeah, well, we do what we can.
So the 2012 West Coast Conference Women's Cross Country Championship up here in Portland, Oregon. and on a day when the conditions are a little bit challenging. But I think at this point, maybe the runners are maybe not thinking about that a whole lot.
No, I think ultimately what's on their mind is getting to that finish line as quickly as possible. For some of these women, this is the final race of their season, and for others, they still have nationals to look forward to. So either way, at the finish line, they can get their jackets back on and their sweats and start warming up again.
Get back on that bus.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's funny, Scott, you mentioned, for a lot of the runners, it's their last race. And I remember, throwing shot put in high school, and you go to that last meet of the year, and, it'll be a qualifying meet, and, the coach will say, hey, not everybody's going to qualify, but no matter who you are and you're trying to finish the year, finish with a personal best.
That's right. And some of these women have definitely been training for this meet alone. I know Laura Sir of San Francisco, this is her debut for the season, and she hopefully has nationals on the horizon as well. But many of these women and their coaches have tried to cater their training accordingly to make sure that they peak at this time.
And the Nationals will be next month in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's right, a bit of a change-up from normally Terre Haute in Indiana.
Yeah, and they've been in Terre Haute for a long time. And so the runners now coming back down toward the start-finish line area. So San Francisco, Portland, BYU, Gonzaga, Loyola Marymount, Santa Clara, San Diego, and St. Mary's. And Pepperdine, your team standings through the first part of the race.
Should see our leader approaching the finish line in about 6 or 7 minutes.
So one more lap to go as the leaders starting to think about that finish line. Strategy for the final lap, Scott.
That's right. So they have approximately 1.5 miles now, and what's going through their mind is they need to take stock of how much energy they have left, what sort of speed they have left in their feet, and whether or not they can play the hand they've been dealt accordingly to maximize their finish.
Conceivably, we have that very fast pack at the start of the race. Conceivably, how much ground can be made up in that pack?
It's hard to say. Some of these women probably are more accustomed to running shorter things on the track and thus have the foot speed that can carry them up towards the front once again. It'll be difficult to tell until we are in the final kilometer, but I'd say if you're a kicker, you could be in contention for an individual title.
And, funny thing, a lot of people think, well, today horse racing, because of the mudders. Is there a type of runner that last 1,000 yards, 2,000 or 2,000 meters would be favored? Are there mudders in cross country?
I think you're going to find some people who let the conditions get to them, and you're going to have those who really sink their teeth into any race regardless of the conditions. I think it's those people who we're going to see are going to be successful today.
And so we've got that lead group that was about 9 or 10 runners the last time it passed us by, and they're off on sort of the southeastern end of Fernhill Park. This is a beautiful park, by the way.
It is. It's 26 acres, and it was established in, I think, 1940s. Oddly enough, used to be a place where carjackers used to strip their cars they've stolen.
And it looks like we got a pack of about 7 runners out at the front as they make their way toward the S-curve area here at Fernhill Park. There's a little bit of a course adjustment in that part of the course as they come into finish the third lap. Elena Burkhardt from San Francisco leads it. And Hottentrott Freitag from Portland right up at the front. And San Francisco, 3 of the top 4 spots.
That's right. And frankly, Coach Helen Lehman-Winters has really done a terrific job cultivating these runners. And it'll be very exciting to see what they can do in this final kilometer.
It's funny. You might see at home some of our spectators. And some of them are moving at a pretty good clip. They're going as fast as the runners.
That's right. Now's the chance to get your seat to see the final kick down that straightaway.
So they go through an S-curve on the baseball field area and then come back toward the finish line. Everybody's rushing up toward the finish line. And the women's runners coming into the final stretch of the 2012 West Coast Conference Cross Country Championships. And Ava Kirchova, the University of San Francisco, a wide lead up at the front.
That's right, and she's followed closely by her teammate, Elena Burkhardt, from Germany, I believe. And that appears to be another San Francisco runner in fourth place, just behind her.
Yeah, right behind Cherie Shea of LMU, coming in third in today's race. A wet finish here at Portland's Fernhill Park. You see the players coming across the line, and you wonder what's that stuff covering them. It's mud.
That's right. The course has been extremely damp today, and the runners are clearly carrying some of the course with them as they come across the finish line.
And those San Francisco runners finishing at the front ran about a 5:32, 5:33 mile.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive given that their opening mile was about 10 seconds slower than that. So it's nice to see them moving up, running what we would call negative splits. Very successful race strategy for them today.
So San Francisco finishing first with 26 points. Portland way behind at 52 points. BYU 85, Gonzaga 105, and Loyola Marymount finishing fifth with 110 points, but a real wide split between the first and second place teams.
That's right. San Francisco has just been dominant all season long. They beat BYU twice this year, Portland once, and it's not much of a surprise to see them take it out so dominantly today.
And then rounding out the bottom four, Santa Clara at 187, San Diego at 203, St. Mary's at 246, and Pepperdine at 269.
Ava, congratulations. How did you feel?
I felt good. I felt really good. I didn't feel that good before the race because it was rainy and I was getting a little bit sick, so I was not that confident. But I won, so I guess I felt good.
Right, and it seemed like it was a very close back. When did you feel it was time to take the lead?
Just the last 200 meters, we were coming to the final straight with my teammate Elena, and I guess I had the last kick, so.
Yeah, it was very tight. It was very exciting. Did you find that the course posed any challenges for you with the mud?
With the mud, because I'm a little bigger and heavier athlete, so I'm not that happy with the muddy surface. But it worked well today, so it was good.
Now this is going to be broadcast online. Do you have anything you'd like to say to your family back home?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ahoj rodina, zdravím vás z Portlandu. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Ava. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And back here at Fernhill Park with the coach of the victorious San Francisco Dons, Helen. First of all, how does it feel to win 4 of these in a row?
I mean, it's incredible. Obviously, winning the conference championships is extremely important to us and this team. And we have 5 women on our team who've been part of all 4 of our conference championships, either running or redshirting, and 4 of them are here today. And obviously, it's a really special moment for us.
Is it too soon to call the Dons a dynasty?
I think it's too soon to call anybody a dynasty, but we're excited about coming back for a 5th time next year, and obviously, most importantly, excited about going to the NCAA regional meet and getting to the national meet.
And the conditions today, not exactly ideal. What does that say about your young women to compete and to win on a day like this?
Well, we were excited to come to the Pacific Northwest and be in the miserable rain. So we were fully prepared for this. And our goal was to get 5 women in the top 10 and have a good team performance. And yeah, our women are tough and they're excited and we're ready to roll over the next couple of weeks.
Well, Helen, congratulations and good luck as you move on to regionals.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Fernhill Park in Portland, Oregon for the 2012 West Coast Conference Men's Cross Country Championships. I'm George Devine alongside Scott Knockstedt. And Scott, we saw in the women's race today a very sloppy, muddy run. The players covered with mud as they crossed the finish line. It's continued to rain. It's still cold. We're going to see more of the same on the men's race.
You know, more of the same and then some. After the women's race, they've gone through 3 laps already with all those spikes, chewing up the ground even more.
And there's the starter's gun, and the runners are going to run across the football field here at Fernhill Park, and then right across the synthetic track and up toward baseball field area. Get a good look at the pack as it starts to move very quickly up the hill. Right now it looks almost like a sprint rather than a long 8K race.
That's right. The dynamics of the men's race is going to be much different than the women's. We have a clear favorite. BYU is coming out here with a lot of firepower. There are a couple standouts on, say, the Gonzaga team and LMU and St. Mary's. But Portland's going to be hot on the heels of BYU. It'll be very exciting to see how this race unfolds, and I think we're going to see a much faster race than the women's.
You know, it's interesting with BYU coming on the conference last year, the Cougars basically ended Portland's dynasty in this event. There's a rivalry now between BYU and Portland in this sport.
That's right. Yeah, so I think 32 years was the longest unbroken consecutive winning streak of any sport here in the U.S. And with BYU coming in, Portland was forced to run their A squad. It was a very competitive race last year. We saw a lot of records broken, particularly with Trevor Dunbar, Alfred Kipchumba, and Miles Betty taking the lead in that race. And this year is no difference, and we're going to see Portland really out for blood.
And for Portland, there's some home turf bragging rights here. This is their home course, basically, or one of their home courses.
That's right. Portland has a lot of familiarity with this course. They hosted the preview about 3 weeks ago, and they regularly train their speed work here. So they have an advantage in that regard. But like I said, BYU is very deep with talent. It'll be exciting to see what happens.
You know, Scott, you mentioned speed work. This course can be fast.
That's right. In comparison to Crystal Springs down in California, this is a much flatter course. Personally, I am a former Portland runner myself. This is one of my favorite places to do speed work because of the lack of hills.
Yeah, and the one thing about this course we saw in the women's race, as the runners now head back toward the main part of the compound here, down toward the start-finish line area, we do have one runner way out at the front, a little too far from our view to identify him at this point, but very sizable pack in that first, let's say, 100 meters or so of a lap space.
That's right, and I wouldn't be surprised if our leader currently will fall back into the pack here eventually. We'll be coming up on the first kilometer shortly, which should be under 3 minutes, which is very exciting. The first mile of the preview several weeks ago was approximately 4:50, and today I wouldn't be surprised to see a 4:40 or a 4:45.
Really?
That's right. With the level of talent that we're seeing today, this could be a very exciting race despite the conditions.
The best runners bring out the best in each other.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And so the runners will go up a little bit of a slight incline, then up onto a plateau. And the grade changes here, there aren't a lot of them, but they are pretty significant.
That's right. They're very subtle, which in comparison to Crystal Springs is a real change. But here, that slight uphill they're going on right now past the 1K mark is very muddy, and it comes at a point in the race where we're going to start to see the runners settle in a bit.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned Crystal Springs, and I live near Crystal Springs race course. My wife and I take our daughter hiking in the area, take our dog up in that area. And you look at that Crystal Springs course, and you know the old guy used to say, I walked uphill to and from school 10 miles
Both
each
ways.
day. That's Crystal Springs.
Of course. And from my experience racing there, I felt the same way.
Yeah, so this course a little more gentle as the crowd starts to move over toward where the runners are going to be on the west side of the park here. Kind of a Wrigley Field effect here at Fernhill, where you got houses right up alongside of the race course.
That's right. A large portion of this park used to be a high school, but they've since cleared it. They kept the track, and it's now all under the aegis of the Portland Park System.
Yeah, it's a beautiful park. Being from California, we don't get a lot of fall colors. I love the colors.
Yeah, it's quite lovely. It's a nice weather aside. It's a nice place, nice scenery to enjoy a great cross-country race.
And we see the bicyclist leading the pack of runners, and that looks like maybe Portland Purple up at the front.
Actually, I'm not sure. That could be J.R. Rajpal of LMU. It's hard to say from this vantage point. But look, right now it looks like the pack is closing in on him, going to be enveloping him here coming up on the mile mark.
And I see some runners in that pack starting to try to find a little elbow room on the outside.
Our leader from St. Mary's is Rajpal Panu.
You nailed it.
That's right. And it looks like they came through at 4:45, just as I was anticipating.
Young, Jared Ward. In fifth from Portland, Lars Eric Mull.
Now I'm excited to see Lars Eric Mald running. He's been out part of the season. He's injured. One of Portland's top runners. It's nice to see him back.
So kind of one of the flatter parts of the course right now.
Yeah, so I just got confirmation the first mile was 4:44 by J.R. Rajpal.
That's pretty fast.
It's quite fast. And, you know, with BYU entering the conference last year, I know Coach Connor wanted to take it out hard last year, and that's how we saw Trevor Dunbar and Alfred Kipchumba really push the pace and set some records. This year, I know Portland's changing their tact against BYU, and they're going to let BYU take it out, and maybe Portland's going to try to tuck in dynamics similar to a track race where they're going to try to maintain contact. So it'll be neat to see what happens over the next 3 to 4 laps.
You know, talking about BYU and Provo, Utah up at altitude, you can go a little higher into the Wasatch Mountains. You can train up there a little more. You come back down here basically to sea level in Portland. Does that give the Cougars an edge today?
You know, in a nutshell, yes. There is some evidence to suggest that the ideal combination is to live high, train low. Because training at high altitude, you will have less oxygen available to you for the really oxygen-intensive workouts. So what we see with, like, say, the Nike Oregon Project runners, sleeping in altitude tents, simulating the experience of living at high altitude, but having the benefits of training in the denser air of sea level.
Yeah, because basically when BYU joined this conference, they joined a league full of sea level schools coming from the Mountain West.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, I'd say overall, it gives them a net advantage. I've read some studies that suggest that training at altitude gives you approximately an 8 to 10% increase in your VO2 max. So that said, the rest of the schools of the West Coast Conference, though, are accustomed to training at sea level where the air is a little denser. And I guess we'll see what happens today.
And you do have some runners from the California schools who run on beaches, run on sand. That's another trick.
That's right. Some people say running on sand will help increase your strength training and a lot of the stabilizer muscles that help give you a little boost, especially when it comes to the speed training.
The runner's off on a pretty flat part of the course right now, over toward the edge of the property here. Tree-lined areas right here along the banks of the mighty Columbia River, just about a mile from here. Portland, a beautiful city, where the Willamette and the Columbia meet.
That's right. It's really a nice place to be, and like we said earlier, very conducive to the distance running community.
And a lot of parks, especially like this one here at Fernhill, we see the runners, and now that pack is tightened up a little bit toward the front.
That's right, and it's nice to see too that the pack has a nice diversity of runners. It's not just BYU, it's not just Portland, but we're seeing a fair amount of Gonzaga and LMU runners tucked in there. Yeah, really at this stage, it's a very exciting race.
Neil, when we think about our eventual winner, will our eventual winner come from that group up there, or maybe in this next group coming along, does somebody there have a chance?
You know, at this stage, and looking at how dense that lead pack is, my suspicion is we're going to see our individual leader rising from there. There is a chance of some of the folks behind that pack moving up, but this is the sort of day, this is the sort of race where you see runners who take it out hard and can finish hard.
And finishing is one of the keys today in this weather. And we talked about it in the women's race earlier, Scott, but the traction, does it make a difference now that this, we're now looking at multiple laps run along this course? Does that smooth it out, make it less treacherous?
It actually makes it more treacherous. I've run in some races where there have been 2-3 races before ours, and each successive trip around the course just tears it up a little bit more. And sometimes you'll even notice a difference within your own race. I'm sure some of these men will notice that on their final lap it's going to be a lot muddier than it was when they started.
Because you got literally thousands of feet going round and round.
That's right. That's right, definitely. And when the ground is this soft from a week's worth of rain, it can really do some damage.
And people run on this course every day.
That's right.
So now they're up on that plateau area up toward the south end of Fernhill Park here in Portland. And the runners will emerge into our view shortly. But as the crowd starts to move up the hill, and you made a great point earlier, Scott, about the crowd.
That's right. This is not only is Portland a great place for distance runners, but it's a great place for people who support distance running. And as we can see here, we have an awful lot of spectators who are really getting their workout running around to support their favorite teams.
Here comes the front of the pack. And
looks like Rajpal. Oh, we just saw a fall. It could have been J.R. Rajpal. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
he was our leader.
He's disappeared from view.
And now it looks like it's become a BYU Portland race. I'd like to note that BYU is a very young team, George. The top 3 runners we're looking at, Woody Kincaid, David Perry, and Scott Fauble, all true sophomores, all 3 of which extremely talented. They're going to be backed up by 2 true freshmen,
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Jacob
on lap
Smith
number 2, your leader
and
from
Isaac
Portland
Yorks,
University,
one of the
Scott
top recruits this
Fauble.
past year. And so it's very exciting. And Jared Bassett is in the mix, one of the most talented steeplechasers in the country this past year. And it'll be very exciting to see what they can do.
Yeah, you mentioned steeplechase, and steeplechase involves a series of obstacles, including the big water obstacle. Does that give a steeplechase runner an edge today?
You know, I would, considering the amount of water here and the amount of up and down this course has, I'd say definitely.
Yeah, interesting point you bring up. You know, we talked earlier about falls. Everybody falls. What's next? What's the trick after that?
Well, the trick is to not let the fall demoralize you, but rather to try to seek new strength from it. It is in some ways adversarial to fall down, and it can break your spirit. But if you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and take all that mud that's covering you as a badge of pride and a badge of courage rather than as a symbol of defeat, you can really rise to the challenge.
When we watch the women's runners come across the finish line, they look like they could have auditioned for a laundry detergent commercial, given all the mud they were covered with.
That's definitely a fact. I'm sure they're all going to be looking forward to a nice warm shower later today.
Yeah, it's so funny. You go out, you get wet and cold, and the first thing you want to do is go take a hot shower.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. Now, they just mentioned our men's leader is from BYU. BYU is coached by Ed Eyestone, a former Olympian himself, and I cannot stress enough the depth of talent that BYU has. Earlier this year on, I believe it's September 29th, at the Dellinger Invite, we saw the top 5 or BYU runners going under 24 minutes. In comparison to Portland, who have only seen 2 or 3 guys this season going under 24. So it's very exciting to see what can happen today.
Yeah, right now the runners are up at the northwest end of the park here, working their way along the perimeter. And pretty good pace still.
That's right. I believe our leaders right now are Rex Shield and Jared Smith from BYU. Rex Shield coming off of a flu. He missed the last meet. But both these guys are extremely talented. Neither are seniors, and so we'll likely see them around for a few more years to come.
Yeah, you mentioned to me earlier that BYU runs well together as a team at the front of the pack.
That's right, and they do have the talent to make that possible, and they have a very large team in which they can draw from that talent pool. But BYU is smart at running together, being cooperative, and making sure that every member of the team succeeds.
You know, a lot of people, I think, maybe overlook that. You know, this is, an individual sport, in a lot of ways. The team with the fastest runner is going to do the best, but getting the less faster guys, maybe a notch down, to coordinate together is a big part of the strategy.
It is, but at the end of the day, having those top runners leading from the front and leading by example helps pull the runners beneath them up, and it provides a good example for them to follow.
So the 2012 West Coast Conference Men's Cross Country Championships here at Fernhill Park in Portland, Oregon. We're pretty far into the race. What's going through the minds of the leaders right now, if you're up toward the front?
Well, right now they've established themselves. They are well aware of who their competition is on either side of them, and now it's a real test of will to see who has the guts to kick it out for the remainder of the race.
And it is rainy and cold. Is there a point in the race where your body kind of forgets about that?
There is, and it's difficult to put your finger on it right at that moment. But
all right, in the men's race,
you do
going back and forth.
You do find that
lap 1, and BYU had a 3-point
that you solidify that position. The warmth just kind of comes from the inside.
So Portland now in the lead after this stage in the race.
That's very exciting. And I was talking with Coach Rob Connor earlier, and he said that if we saw the top 5 Portland runners all within striking distance of the lead, that Portland is sitting well and has a good shot at taking this. However, BYU is ranked 5th nationally. Portland is ranked 17th, so it'll still be an uphill battle as the race continues.
Yeah, and still a lot can happen. I mean, I've always liked the analogy. You look at a lot of sporting events, sort of like the Masters. Nobody ever wins the Masters on Thursdays, but a lot of guys lose it on Thursday.
That's exactly right. And really with these conditions and with Portland in the lead now, it could be anyone's race. Although right now it looks as though we're seeing the 2 BYU runners breaking away. I believe that's David Perry and Scott Fauble chasing them down.
Yeah, Scott Fauble was leading earlier on.
From Brigham Young University, Jared Ward.
Jared Ward.
From BYU is Tyler Thatcher in 3rd.
Tyler Thatcher.
From Portland, it is David Perry.
David Perry from Portland in 3rd.
Austin Strom. In 5th from BYU, Jason Witt. In 6th from Portland, Scott Fauble. In 7th from Portland, William Kincaid. In 8th from BYU, Connor Peliquin. In 9th from San Francisco, Jose Madera. And rounding out your top 10 after 3 laps from St. Mary's, Rajpal Panu.
Rajpal Panu falling back to 10th.
That's right, and it was hard to see from this vantage point, but I think that might have been him who fell on that downhill.
Yeah, and that probably cost him how many seconds?
It's hard to say. That was at a slightly steeper spot on the course, and there was a lot of runners around him. It probably, if I were to wager, maybe at least 15 seconds.
Yeah, I'm thinking 15, 20 seconds.
That's
From
right.
the time you go down to the time you get up and get back to speed. Something he can recover from?
It's hard to say, particularly looking at how strong BYU and Portland are running at this moment. He will probably keep himself in contention, but at the pace at which these guys are taking it out, it'll be hard to say.
And we're really starting to see some gaps in the spacing between the runners.
We are. I mean, we're really seeing a separation between those top-tier runners who are looking on to nationals and those for whom this is going to be their final race of the season.
And, I think one of the keys, final race of the year, finish with a personal best. Finish as strongly as you can.
That's right. And it's a shame to see that they're having to do that under such less than ideal conditions, but everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah, exactly. It's as muddy and as wet and as slippery as it is for the first guy as it is for the last guy.
And if this keeps up, we'll all probably need a boat to get home.
I hope not.
I was talking with Loyola Marymount's coach, Scott Guerrero, and Weston Strum is up there in the mix with the Portland and BYU runners. Weston finished 10th in this meet as a freshman and 22nd last year. So he's certainly been leading the lines this season as on the men's side.
So the runner's about to come back down toward the main part of where the start-finish line area is, and where the teams have their headquarters set up.
In third with 98 points, San Francisco. In second with 40, the University of Portland. And in first with 28 points, Brigham Young.
Yeah, BYU is now leapfrog Portland again.
That's
at
right.
the top.
And they seem to be running smart. 28 to 40 is not an insurmountable obstacle for Portland to try to overcome. But if BYU continues to inch forward, it's going to be a tall order to fill.
And San Francisco still in third place. San Francisco won the women's championship earlier today. So the runners about to make their way out onto the lower part of the course, and we got a wide gap up in the front.
We certainly do, and this is where we're really seeing, especially this late in the race, where we probably have approximately 6 minutes to go. We're going to really see what these top men are made out of.
Yeah, we're really starting to see some gaps develop up in let's say the first 25, 30 runners.
That's right. There's what's nice about this sport is there's a real history. I know that Connor Peliquin, a member of the BYU team, his father ran for University of Portland in the West Coast Conference, and graduated actually 1 year before Rob Connor, the current head coach of the University of Portland, came in and raced for that school.
And Rob has built such a dynasty here at Portland.
He really has. He came in to was essentially quite a small school with a limited budget and built it into a national powerhouse.
Yeah, and just somebody who has been very enthusiastic about the sport and a great spokesman for his sport and for his school.
Very much so. He's very approachable, very nice guy, and speaking from experience, a real pleasure to run under.
So the runners up on that plateau area for the last time today.
And this is where we're going to see a very exciting final lap. And frankly, I'm very excited to see the finish, to see what these guys can do. Scott Fauble, David Perry, and Woody Kincaid all have incredible finishing kicks. I know the freshman on Portland's side, Isaac Yorks, ran a 3:45 1500 as a high schooler. So we know that they've got speed for a kick. The question is whether or not BYU's long distance strength is going to take them through with enough of an advantage.
And also staying together as a team up toward the front.
That's right. In this sport, it's very important to try to keep as many runners together from the same team as possible, and you want to distance yourself from the other runners so as to maximize your lowest score possible.
And here comes our leader on the downhill.
And if I'm not mistaken, that looks like Ward. It's hard to say from this vantage point.
And he's got probably, looks like about 30 meters between him and the next runner.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, Ward earlier this season ran a 23:40 at the Dillinger Invite. A very strong showing, finishing second just behind Trevor Dunbar, who of University of Oregon finished 11th at the Olympic Trials this year.
So we head into
Your leader from Brigham Young is Tyler Thatcher.
Tyler
Oh,
Thatcher
that's
from
Tyler
BYU is the
Thatcher.
leader.
Very exciting.
Oh, excuse me, Jared Ward.
Excuse me, Jared Ward.
It
Jared
was,
Ward.
in fact, Jared Ward. Okay.
And then Tyler Thatcher up toward the front.
In that same race against University of Oregon, Tyler Thatcher ran a 23:54. So we know that he can comfortably get under 24 minutes.
So Scott Fauble from Portland up toward the front as well as they move on to that flat surface over toward the west end of the park, and then they're going to do a curve there and then come back down onto the main track for the finish.
Come down to a two-team race to the finish. The University of Portland and Brigham Young.
Portland and BYU up at the front for the team championship as the crowd starts to getting down toward the track. Hopefully they stay out of our way so we can see the finish line.
I hope so. I fear, though, with the number of people here to support their teams, it's going to be hard to see.
So,
spectators, please do not cross the track at this time. Our leaders are going to be on the track momentarily.
So the pack about to turn onto the track. 8,000 meters starting to wrap up.
Now, it looked like Jared Ward had a very decisive lead. Scott Fauble is, like I said, has quite a great deal of foot speed. He's run 1500s in the 3:45 range. David Perry of Portland also has run 5Ks in under 14 minutes. So Portland's got some speed, but BYU just might have the depth today. It'll be exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, and we'll find out as the chip numbers on the shoes start to register in the computer, and you know, it could be a matter of tenths of seconds that separate these two teams for the championship.
That's exactly right. At the preview 3 weeks ago, the winning time was decided by less than half a second.
Again, please do not cross the track. Our finishers will be here in 1 minute.
So the finisher's still about maybe anywhere from 45 to 60 seconds away from getting down onto the main track here and then running through that finish line. And I think it's important to run through that finish line.
That's exactly right, especially when you have this level of talent. You're going to need every ounce of, or every measure of the course to make sure that you can emphasize your speed and dominance over your competitors. And
a lot of these runners will see each other again at regional and even national competitions coming up as we move into November.
That's right, and it's nice to, you know, although BYU has made things more competitive for Portland's dominance at the conference championship meet, it has really upped the ante, and all teams have been running much better because of it.
All right, here they come into the chute. And BYU up at the front.
Between BYU, there you go.
Unofficially, I had a 23:40.
Jared Ward.
Portland, BYU, Portland. Portland could be taking this from BYU. This is very exciting. I'm not going to lie, George.
In fourth, Tyler Thatcher from BYU. In fifth from Portland.
The big question is going to see where the fourth and fifth runners from Portland are going to be.
And we've got a little bit of a gap here. We've got one of the pilots pushing hard. And right here, BYU and Portland.
Lars Eric Mulvey. All right, the top five from BYU and Portland are both in. It's going to be a close team score.
So very close on that team score.
Very close. Frankly, George, I'm quite nervous to see what happens here.
Jose Medeiros, Stephen Garboden,
and Jose Medeiros from USF finishing well.
That's right. Their top men's runner this entire season has performed quite well.
Portland's Jacob Smith.
We also have LMU's Western Strum and J.R. Rajpal tucked in there as well. It's a nice mix of runners, and like I said, the caliber of runner from the West Coast Conference has really increased since the introduction of BYU.
And if you hear like a little chirping sound, that's the sound of the chips in the runner's shoes registering with the race computer.
That's right, and those chips have greatly simplified the task of the race organizers in determining the scoring system, not only efficiently but rapidly. It's quite nice.
And up at the finish line, they just look at a monitor and they can read off the names and say, you're first, you're second.
That's right, and it's also providing us with the mile splits and the team standings halfway through the race.
And what's great about it is, I think it provides a coaching tool.
Definitely, no doubt about that.
Yeah, because it's the coaches can look at what the runners do at different portions of the race. As most of the pack has started to arrive here in the 2012 WCC Cross Country Championships, and we're going to have to wait to find out who the champion is, either Portland or BYU. And you know, people talk about the different basketball rivalries in this league. I think this Portland-BYU cross-country rivalry is just as heated.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, since BYU came in last year, forcing Portland to run their A squad for the first time in decades, it's really forced everyone to take this race much more seriously, and I think for the sake of the sport, it's really benefited.
So, a number of Santa Clara athletes crossing the finish line along with some St. Mary's Gales. And these runners just coated with mud as they finish up here today. Pepperdine getting across against St. Mary's.
You know, going into this race today, I expected to see that the firepower of BYU to be quite decisive. But after seeing Portland interjecting themselves into the top 5, through the top 5, I gotta admit, I'm very excited to see what the outcome of this race is going to be overall. I'm anxious to hear the results.
Yeah, it's interesting. Portland's performance today. You know, if you had to attribute a couple of things to it, what would you contribute?
The rookie run will be held. You're here for the rookie run.
You know, part of it would probably be the different approach that Coach Connor took in comparison to last year's conference championship meet, where they thought they could outrun BYU by going out hard. This time they let BYU go out, take the pace, and Portland sat on them, tried to maintain contact, let BYU work hard, sort of break the wind, so to speak, and then Portland tried to hang on there and outkick them in the end.
All right.
Well, when we come back, we'll find out who won the team championship. Was it Brigham Young or was it Portland? Stick around. And back here at Fernhill Park in Portland with the men's individual champion, Jared Ward of Brigham Young University. And Jared, first of all, at what point in the race did you take the lead?
It was about halfway through, maybe a couple miles to go.
How fast was that pace up at the front?
You know, our plan as a school or as a team from the start was to keep the pace at least honest. So it was a decent pace. Maybe a little less than, you know, a typical race pace. But
The rain, the cold, the mud. What was it like?
it was definitely wet out there. You know, we were talking a little before, you know, I just haven't ran much in the rain this year yet, and so it was different for us, but it's good. You know, you never know what you're going to see down the line, and it's good to test it.
Looking ahead to the rest of the season, what's in store for you?
Well, make it through regionals, and then you know, try to get after it at nationals.
And how much did this race help you today in preparing for that?
I really looked at it as a good opportunity to try to work towards the end of a race and really push the pace and see how far we can tap into the tank. And it's always good to be practiced under different conditions. And so I look at it like it was a good opportunity.
Well, Jared, congratulations
Thank you
on
very
an
much.
individual championship today. A great finish here today at Fernhill Park in Portland. It took a while to figure it out, but a very slim margin for the championship. And Portland edged Brigham Young by 1 point.
That's right. It's about as slim a margin as you can get. It sounds as though the two teams were never more than 6 points apart during the course of the race. And on today's race, we saw number 17th ranked nationally Portland taking number 5 BYU just by the slimmest of margins.
What impact will this have on the national rankings?
You know, it's hard to say that the national rankings, at least to me, are a bit cryptic. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't. You know, I'd be surprised if we don't see Portland moving up several spots up on the roster.
You know, with Portland winning at 32-33, that close margin, how many seconds does that come down to?
You know, that comes down to one person. It could have very well been less than a second, judging by how tight the finish was between maybe, say, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th runners.
We'll be back with more from the 2012 West Coast Conference Cross Country Championships.
I'm Scott Knoxon, and I'm here with Scott Fauble, the leading Portland finisher for today's West Coast Conference Championship race. Scott, how'd you feel about your race?
You know, I was really happy about it. I was hoping to get the win, but BYU's top guy, Jared Ward, he was really good today, made a move, and I just couldn't cover it. So I'm very happy with second place, though.
Yeah, now going into this race, Portland was ranked 17th, BYU was ranked 5th. What do you suppose it was that helped give Portland the edge today?
Well, I think there's a lot of things, you know, and one of them was knowing the home course. I think the weather really helped us out. This is something we're very used to. And then the last thing I think was just we really executed our strategy well, and we all ran really well, really gutsy coming into the last lap, which, you know, and it was 1 point difference, so every point mattered. And I think we made up more points. Well, obviously we made up more points than we lost. So I think that was really the biggest thing, our guts there at the end.
Sure. Now, I know that Aiden Irish pulled his ankle on Sunday.
Yeah.
Lars has been off and on this season.
Yeah.
How does this race set you guys up for nationals, or the season ahead?
I think it sets us up really well. You know, we were coming off of Wisconsin, where we didn't run as well as we would have liked. So we came in here. I know everyone's really, really pumped about it. You know, I know I am. So I think coming out of this race really gives us a lot of confidence and a lot of momentum going into regionals and nationals. So hopefully we can keep that going and do well at nationals.
Yeah, well, congratulations, Scott. Do you have
Thank you
anything
very
you'd like
much.
to say to your family?
Mom, Dad, Annie, if you guys are watching, thanks very much. I can't wait to see you guys at Thanksgiving, and I love you guys.
And back here at Fernhill Park, we're with the head coach of the champion Portland Pilots, Rob Connor. And Rob, a one-year vacancy from winning this. You're back this year by the slimmest of margins, just 1 point.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be close, and it was a challenge to our guys to see if we could win this thing here in Portland. And we knew we'd have a lot of support with the fans, and it was, this is in 27 years of coaching is probably the most exciting thing I've been involved in. That was great.
What was your strategy going in?
Strategy primarily was to stay behind BYU, let them do some initial leading if we could, and bide our time, and as planned, it kind of broke apart there in the last 2 laps, and our guys remained tough. So,
Any home course advantage today with the rain, the mud, the cold?
yeah, it's just knowing the course is important. It's a very tough mental course with 4.5 laps, and our guys were ready for it. So it was a great job by our guys, and couldn't be happier. Want to thank BYU for holding that trophy for us for a year, but they're classy people. Ed Eyestone congratulated me right away. He said, I thought I had you guys winning by 1, so his math is better than mine. But
Well, Rob, congratulations. The Portland Pilots, the 2012 West Coast Conference men's cross-country champions.